Hello, everyone. Welcome to PSYC 171, the online version. So what I'm going to try to do is teach the class the same way that I would normally do, but instead of doing it live, because if I were to do it live, 125 of you could potentially join and possibly crash the system. I am recording the class and posting the recording. You can rewatch as often as you would want to watch the class. I'm going to enable the discussion board. So you can ask questions about the course or the class and whatever you want to ask, right? You can also email me, and I'm going to be posting an announcement regarding office hours pretty soon. So the lecture will be 50 minutes long, just like it would normally be if I were teaching on campus. I'm not going to make any adjustments to the syllabus because I can deliver the content um, with the classes that we have left. I don't think it's going to be an issue. I had plenty of time to talk about shaping and then chaining, which are the topics of this unit. The lectures will be a little shorter because I have a lot of links and videos that I show students when I'm teaching about shaping and chaining. And instead of showing it in this recording, I'm going to post those links so you guys can watch those videos on your own. I may also post some assignments on Canvas for credit, but don't worry, I'll be sending announcements. The exam would be as scheduled, just like I did last time. It would be whenever the exam is scheduled, the same time, but instead of going to campus to take it, you can take it from Canvas. And if for some reason you take the exam in the testing center, please let me know if you want the exam sent there or if I can just make adjustments to the online system for you. Again, just shoot me an email. This is unprecedented. We've never had to do this. You never had to be in this situation taking online courses. So what I'm going to try to do is try to make this as normal as possible. Of course, I'm teaching it from my home office. I'm actually wearing clothes. I'm not wearing my pajamas. But you might be wearing your pajamas. I mean, you can. I don't, I cannot see you. You can do whatever you want. I think it might be advantageous for you that you can go back and rewatch parts of the lecture if you want to. So in terms of taking notes, it might not be as crucial as when you were on campus. So let me know, give me some feedback after you watch the first video to see if there's anything I should be doing differently. All right, so today we're going to be talking about shaping. So let's start the presentation here. So when we're talking about shaping, we're talking about a behavioral technique to teach a response or to increase engagement in a response. And like with all the techniques that I have talked about, they are things that happen in the natural environment. So shaping is something that it inadvertently happens in the natural environment. So when you're reading the book, the chapter, the first example that they're going to give in the chapter is the example of children or a child learning how to talk. And essentially telling you that the parents or those around the child may inadvertently shape the child's behavior of talking. And it starts with, kids playing with their vocal cords. So they're making some sounds and parents start reacting to those sounds. Why are parents reacting to those sounds? So imagine if you're a mother and your kid is, in the room by herself and the kid starts babbling and the kid makes all sorts of different noises. And at some point, the kid's doing like da da da, ba ba ba, The moment the kid makes the sound the mom is gonna think, oh look, my kid is trying to say mom. Mom is gonna react. Mom is gonna be very excited about. So what mom is doing is potentially reinforcing the behavior of the child of making the sound because that sound is a close approximation of the word mama or mother, which is the word that mom wants the kid to make, right? The mom wants the kid to say mama or mother and so forth. That's the first thing the mom wants the kid to do. Now, notice that there's going to be some differential reinforcement. So we'll talk about differential reinforcement. In a sense, the mom is differentially reinforcing a subset of sounds. So there's some behaviors that mom is interested in is the sound mom, mama, and nothing else. So mom might react to that. Now, parents might not do that purposefully. They're not saying like, oh, I'm going every time my kid makes the sound I'm going to react. But remember, parents are a very important source of reinforcement for kids. So the parent's voice, the parent's facial expression, all of those things have been paired with very powerful reinforcers like warmth, like food, right? So when parents react, even if it's a minimum reaction, a little bit of attention, facial expression, that may be sufficient to reinforce the behavior. So again, shaping is a way to develop new behavior that involves differential reinforcement of successive approximations of a target behavior. So in the example of a child learning how to talk, the target behavior will be saying the word mother. And the approximations could be, the sound ma, mama, ma, mother, right? So those are all different approximations that would be reinforced until the child can say mother. So I'm going to have a couple links for you. The first link is a link on teaching a rat to press a lever. And this is something that has been used in the laboratory to sort of model the process of extinction. And what they do in the laboratory is they put a rat that, may be a little hungry, put it in the box. The box may have a light and may have a bunch of stuff. But what the box has is this lever that you want the rat to press. Now notice that if the rat presses the lever, he will get food. Now you could put the rat in there and go have a beer and be like, oh, by the time I come back, the rat will be pressing the lever. But the reality is the rat won't. There's no reason for the rat to press the lever. The rat wasn't born knowing how to press the lever. Lever presses are not something that is biologically important for the rat. So the rat may never do that. The rat may sniff the lever, let's say. And that might be the closest the rat ever gets to the lever. And if that's the case, what do? Well, that is your starting behavior. So you would have to probably reinforce sniffing the lever. So if the animal is sniffing the lever, well, then that's your starting behavior. That's the best you're going to get. So reinforce that behavior. Well, if you reinforce the behavior, how are you going to get from that sniffing the lever to pressing the lever? I mean, those are completely different things. Well, if you're only reinforcing sniffing the lever, then you're going to get a rat that sniffs the lever a lot, right? So the rat's going to go there, sniff the lever, and then you're going to give reinforcement. Then the rat's going to go there, sniff the lever, then you're going to give food, sniff the lever, food, sniff the lever, food. So that's all your rat's going to do. Well, how do you get the rat to do something better, something closer to pressing the lever? Well, one of the things you might do is stop reinforcing sniffing the lever. Now, when you stop reinforcing a behavior, what is this process called? Extinction. So if you put the behavior under extinction, what do you think the rat is going to do? Well, what happens when behavior undergoes extinction? Well, the first thing you're going to say, extinction bursts, behavior increases. What else? Yes, emotional reactions. What else? Extinction-induced variability, meaning the animal is going to vary his behavior or her behavior. So the rat's going to try something different. Well, sniffing the lever is not producing reinforcement anymore. What shall I do? Well, maybe I'll try something different. The rat's going to try different things, And eventually the rat will do something that you, as the experimenter, will be like, yes, that is a closer approximation to pressing the lever. Maybe what the rat will do is the rat will be trying different things, and then eventually the rat touches the lever with one paw. Once the rat touches the lever with one paw, what do you want to do? You want to reinforce the behavior. You want to give a lot of reinforcement to that. And then what happens with sniffing the lever? Well, sniffing the lever is under extinction. Everything else is under extinction. The only thing you're going to reinforce now is touching the lever. Now, if the rat touches the lever, food. Touches the lever, food. Touches the lever, food. Eventually, the rat's going to just be touching the lever. Now, how do you go from touching the lever, which is an approximation, to pressing the lever? Same thing. You may have to now put the touching the lever under extinction. The rat's going to try several different things. Maybe the rat will touch several times, right? Extinction burst, touch, and then eventually the rat will try with both paws, and be like, yes, that's what I want. That's a much better approximation than anything else that I've seen. So touching the lever with both paws, not pressing it yet. The rat's not pressing it. You waited, it's not happening, but the rat's touching. If the rat's touching it, then you're going to give reinforcement and put everything else under extinction. Now, touching the lever produces reinforcement, and then the rat's going to touch it, and it's going to touch it again with both paws. Touching with one paw won't work. Touching with the other one won't work. It has to be both paws, both paws, both paws. And then the rat's going to be doing that like crazy, but that's still not what you want. You want the rat to press the lever all the way down. So what do? Same thing. You put that behavior under extinction, and then you wait until the rat does something better. And it might be that at this point, because the rat's already touching with both paws, that the rat will get pissed off because no food is being delivered, and then press the lever all the way down, and that's when you reach your target behavior. Now you reinforce that and nothing else. The second, so for that reason, shaping is used, as you can see, in animal training. Look at the goldfish. If you have a goldfish, you can buy some stuff online to teach your goldfish to play basketball and play soccer. Look at basketball here. And the second example that I'll post a link for you is an example of how a child developed the word water. It's a TED Talk. You don't have to watch the whole TED Talk, just maybe the first 10, 15 minutes. And this guy did something incredible. He put cameras all over his house. And he's going to show in this TED Talk the sounds that his kid has made over a period of time, several months. So then the word water got developed. So you see the kid babbling, and slowly the sound water gets developed, right? So it goes from, gaga to water to water, right? So again, the parents are reacting, interacting with the kid, probably providing subtle types of reinforcement, and usually in the presence of water. So then in the future, when the kid sees water, the kid can say water. So really cool video that kind of shows how words actually develop when children are interacting with their parents and interacting with the environment. So as I mentioned, you're doing successive approximations, right? So what are approximations? Well, successive approximations are responses towards completing a target response. So in the example that I gave of the rat, sniffing, touching with one paw, then touching with both paws are approximations of the target response. The target response is pressing the lever in this case, and all the other behaviors are successive approximations. The first behavior is what we refer to as the starting behavior. So the starting behavior is the first one. So we identify in the rat the starting behavior as sniffing the lever, right? So that would be the starting behavior. And then this behavior is reinforced, like I mentioned, after, and then, the behavior is reinforced, and then put it under extinction until the next approximation comes up, and then that's reinforced, and that's put under extinction, and the next approximation, and so forth until the target behavior. So in the example, again, in the TED Talk that you're going to watch, you're going to see the word gaga, the kid babbling, and then an approximation will be water, and then eventually the kid says water, right? So again, gaga is the starting behavior, wata is the um, approximation, and then water would be the target behavior. So again, this is shaping occurring in the natural environment with learning how to talk. But like with all other procedures in behavior analysis that or any phenomena that occurs in the natural environment, we can repackage it and use it to artificially create behavior. So when we're using shaping, which is a natural process by which behavior evolves, when we're using shaping to develop behavior, we are using two principles that I already told you about. We're using, what are those two principles? The principle of reinforcement and the principle of extinction. You're reinforcing starting behavior, then you're putting that behavior under extinction, and then you're hoping that the extinction will produce novel behavior. So now the novel behavior is a closer approximation of the target behavior. And if so, you reinforce this approximation, put everything else under extinction. This approximation is being reinforced. Once that approximation is happening consistently, you now put that under extinction and then hope that there will be a novel behavior that is induced by extinction. And then you're going to reinforce the novel behavior. There will be a closer approximation to the target. And that's essentially how they are used, right? Now, when you're using shaping, you have to define the target behavior. So, what is the target behavior? Um, do you want the kid to say water? Is that the target behavior? Do you want the rat to press the lever? Is this the target behavior? Do I want a child to use the toilet every 2 hours? That is the target behavior. Do I want a child to take a bite of broccoli? That might be the target behavior, right? Do I want to teach my dog to go pee outside? Well, that's the target behavior. Those are all the different target behaviors that you can think of, that, something you want to teach. Um, is shaping the preferred procedure? Now, if you can use instructions, if you can model the behavior, or you can use prompting the way that we talked about last class or last time we met before the visiting scholar was here, we talked about using prompting strategies, right? So verbal prompts, modeling prompts, and so forth. If you can use prompts, you don't need to use shaping. If you can prompt the rat to press the lever and be like, hey, can you press the lever? Or point to the lever in which the rat needs to press, well, you wouldn't need to use shaping. But guess what? You can't do that. When I teach 181 and the students have to work with a rat and teach the rat to press the lever, some students try, right? They tell the rats, come on, press the lever. But oftentimes that doesn't help. Same with telling your dog, like, hey, can you please like pee outside as opposed to, pee everywhere in the house? That won't work. And an example that they give in the book is one of the first studies actually conducted in the area of shaping, where they're trying to teach a kid to wear glasses. And now, again, why can't you use instructions, modeling, and prompting? This was a child with intellectual disabilities who couldn't really communicate very well. And the kid wouldn't wear glasses. The kid would just throw the glasses away, right? So they had to create steps, right? So they had to think in terms of what is the starting behavior, right? What can the child do? Can the child tolerate the glasses for like 1 second? Or maybe can the child just hold the glasses and put closer to her face? And if that's the case, it was a boy, so his face. I don't remember what the steps were, so I'm gonna make them up. But um, the starting behavior is something that the client is already doing. So maybe this boy can already put the glasses close to his face, and that's all he can tolerate. Now, that's a behavior we can build upon. It's like, well, the kid is at least holding the glasses. That's a good sign, right? Um, what are the shaping steps? Well, maybe the first one, starting behavior, just holding the glasses. Maybe the second one is just putting the glasses closer to his face. He can just put it close to his face. We'll deliver reinforcement, and that's all we want. He can just do this, remove it, and we're going to provide reinforcement. And we're going to do that several times so he can at least put the glasses on and off very quickly. And then, of course, I need to make sure that the steps are not too big. I can't start by saying, okay, I want the kid to put the glasses on and remove them, and then we're going to reinforce that a lot, and then we're going to put that under extinction. And now the next step is I want the kid to wear the glasses for 2 hours. It's like, wait, you started with the kid just putting the glasses on for a second, and then you want to go for like wearing glasses for 1 second, like on and off, to like 2 hours. That's not going to happen, right? Those steps are too big, like from each, like it's too big of a step, right? Step 2 is too big. So maybe putting the glasses on for now 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. So you're going to build up, you're going to have different steps, right? Until different approximations, until the final behavior. So it is important that your steps are not too big. You have to choose the reinforcer, right? So what reinforcer would you use? Well, it has to be something that would increase behavior. And if you're smart, you're going to start thinking about something that is a condition reinforcer, so there's no satiation. So you think of tokens, a generalized condition reinforcer, or praise, or something that would avoid satiation. When I talk about later today about animal training, I'll give some examples of the kinds of condition reinforcers that are used. Then you want to reinforce each successive approximation. We talked about that. You reinforce the first until it occurs a number of times. Then you stop reinforcing that approximation, meaning you put that under extinction, and then you reinforce the next approximation until it occurs a number of times. Then you'll continue until the target behavior occurs, right? And again, you have to move at a proper pace. You have to really think in terms of how often do I reinforce an approximation? At which moment do I have to stop reinforcement? And then what novel behavior, what novel approximation should I reinforce? Those are all clinical decisions that behavior analysts sort of make as they are shaping a behavior. A lot of people say shaping is an art. It's really not an art, it's really a science, but they mention an art because you have to really be able to identify those approximations. The students in 181, when they teach, when they teach students, when they teach the rats to press a lever, they really have to pay close attention to those approximations, right? And again, sometimes it takes them the whole semester to do it. I've done it so many times that for me now, it might take me, just a few hours, maybe, sometimes a couple sessions, 2 hours max, and I can get a rat to press the lever. But it takes a while because you have to be very sensitive to the behaviors that the animal is engaging in. Now, when is shaping used? Shaping might be used to develop new topographies of a behavior. So what I mentioned to you were behaviors that were not occurring. So new topography is a new form, right, of the behavior, what the behavior looks like. So a word or words were developed, right? The word water, the example that I gave, that you're going to watch on the TED Talk, that's a new behavior. The rat pressing the lever is a new behavior. You may develop new dimensions of a behavior. So we'll talk about new dimensions in a minute. And also to reinstate old behaviors. So let's talk about new behaviors, new dimensions, and then old behaviors. A new dimension could be a behavior that is already occurring, but you want it to, occur at a different level. It's a new way of doing it. So one example, um, it would be to talk louder, right? Maybe someone is very shy, um, and is not talking very loud. And they might have an example like that in the book, but there's this device that some speech pathologists use that looks like a traffic light. So it has like red and then yellow and then green. And you can actually adjust it so it picks up the decibels of someone's voice. So if someone's not speaking loud enough, the person will talk and it'll be red. And then of course the reinforcer will be to get it green. So you can start by adjusting it so the person can just do a little louder, maybe a few more decibels, and then it would turn green. So you're reinforcing that, but then you still want the person to be a little louder. So you adjust your traffic light thing, and now the person has, if the person's speaking the same way as she was speaking before, that won't work. The person has to be a little louder. That turns the thing green. And then you adjust it again, so the person has to be a little louder, a little louder, a little louder, and then eventually the behavior changed. So that was a completely new dimension, right? Um, and then also reinstate old behaviors that are not occurring. Think about individuals with traumatic brain injury that used to behave just like we do, and now they lost some of their capabilities, and now you may have to shape words, you may have to shape walking again. The book gives examples of individuals in the PT, physical therapy, and maybe, if you think about like adherence to treatment, sometimes working with individuals with an injury or elderly individuals, they just don't want to comply. So it is really difficult to get them to do things. So you may have to slowly reinforce starting behaviors, approximations. Maybe, you don't want to do your physical therapy, that's fine. Let's just walk by the physical therapy room and reinforce that behavior. And then once the behavior is occurring systematically, then maybe entering the PT room and staying there for a couple of minutes, maybe touching, the bars, the parallel bars, and then being in the middle, and then maybe trying to stand up. And so slowly you're building up this behavior. Some of you guys work with children with disabilities, if you work in the field of ABA already, and you may use shaping to teach a variety of things. For example, if a child doesn't sit quietly to work or to complete some tasks, you may have to shape that behavior. So you may just sit with the child for a second and then deliver some reinforcement, play with the child for as a way to reinforce sitting in front of you. And maybe you get the child to put her butt on a chair for a second and then reinforcement, and then maybe sitting for a very short period of time, and then the child can escape, and then maybe sitting for a whole minute, and maybe now sitting for 2 minutes until the child can sit for 10-15 minutes and do some homework with you, right? So this is a way of developing, in this case, a new dimension of the behavior, because maybe the child can already sit, but not for a long period of time. Sometimes feeding issues shaping might be used. Maybe child doesn't want to eat broccoli or doesn't want to eat any vegetables, but the child can eat other things. So can you get the child to just, look at the vegetable or tolerate it when the vegetable is in her plate, and maybe touch the vegetable, maybe put the vegetable on the fork, and then just reinforce that, and then put that behavior under extinction. And now maybe kissing the broccoli, and maybe putting the broccoli on her lips, maybe putting the tongue on it, and so forth. So those are also approximations, and of course the target behavior will be eating the damn broccoli. So like I mentioned, if instructions, modeling, and prompting are not applicable or not effective, then shaping may be a good alternative. Shaping may also lead to the development of problem behaviors. Now think about that. Imagine longer durations of tantrum. So imagine the kid complains and the parents reinforce that. Well, the kid says, "Oh, I really want this," and the parents like, "Okay, to make you stop, you can have it." Now the parents just reinforce the complaining. But now, let's say someone says, well, you shouldn't be attending to your kid when your kid complains. Don't do that. Your kid's going to get worse. And the parents then say, okay, I'm not going to comply. I'm not going to give what my kid wants. Now, kids tantrum, and the kid was going to yell or scream the same rate that the kid was screaming before. But that's not working, right? It's under extinction. So what is the kid gonna do? Is gonna scream harder, louder, and try something new. Maybe the kid like stops like throwing objects at the parents, and the parents like, oh my God, I can't handle this. So you can have whatever you want. Notice that the kid, when the starting behavior was screaming, and then the second behavior was the approximation was now screaming and throwing things at the parents. Now that's the behavior that is going to occur. And the parents may decide to ignore that, but now the kid is going to scream, throw things, throw objects at the parents, and maybe strip. Now the kid is like taking the clothes off, and the parents will be like, oh, you cannot do that. So the parents reinforce that behavior. So you see that the starting behavior was a little crying, a little tantruming, and then he went into throwing objects, to stripping, to potentially being aggressive, to potentially biting, and so forth. So the behavior was slowly shaped by those around the child who didn't realize they were reinforcing approximations of this, big aggressive behavior that now is going to become a problem. The kid doesn't receive any services, let's say. No behavior analyst is going to deal with this problem. This is an individual that is going to grow to be a teenager that is extremely aggressive and no one wants to work with. Here's an example of something I did with my dog, Shingu. So you can see, hopefully you can see this video. If not, I'll post the link. We'll find out. I haven't tested, so I think it works. So notice this is very quick. So I did a very quick simulation here in which I have this plastic thing on the floor, this rubber thing on the floor, and all I want is him to touch it with his paws, and I'm going to give him reinforcement. So this goes very quickly. As you can see, it's going to be a starting behavior, and then I'm going to reinforce. I'm going to give him a click. I'm clicking. And the click means that he's going to get a treat. So there's a sound, is a condition reinforcer. And so you can see what he does. And then we'll go back to it. So when he looks at the rubber thing, I'm going to click it. He's sitting because that's what he normally does. So you see that he looked and he got the reinforcer. He right away figured it out. He's very, very smart. Now notice behavior is under extinction, right? So notice some variability. There's my food. Chingu. All right. So so you can see that the first behavior is he's sitting, right? Because what he does when he sees that I have a treat, but then eventually he looks at the rubber, the blue rubber piece, and that's when I give a reinforcer. He immediately goes to it and touches it. That's why I give him a reinforcer. I should try that again with my female dog that you see right here, or with a different dog that I have, my new puppy. It might take them a little longer to learn that. So this is kind of a cool example because it gives you an idea of how a lot of the animal training goes on. And I use this thing that we call the clicker. You may have seen it at Petco or PetSmart if you have a pet. It's a little clicker. They usually have at the counter, the cashier. You can buy it. And that's essentially an auditory stimulus that becomes a condition reinforcer. You have to make it into a condition reinforcer. If you get a clicker training book, is going to teach you how to, load the clicker as they call. You click it and give a treat, and click it and give a treat, and click it and give a treat. So then eventually the click noise itself, it's a reinforcer, and you can then shape behavior with the click noise. So you can deliver the click as the reinforcer, and then the dog will then usually come and get the treat. Now, the advantage of the clicker is that you can actually reinforce the behavior as the behavior is occurring, right? So if my dog sits and I click, I'm reinforcing the moment that the dog touches the floor with his or her butt. If you give a treat, then by the time the animal gets the food, you're reinforcing the behavior of coming towards the food as opposed to the behavior that you really want the animal to engage. So with a clicker, you can actually take a picture of the behavior, right? The behavior that you want to reinforce. You're delivering the reinforcer as soon as the behavior occurs. That's the main advantage of the clicker. Clicker is used in animal training with horses and dogs and cats. With dolphins, for example, they may use a whistle, right, that they can hear. So you may have gone to SeaWorld or the Shed Aquarium or the Monterey Aquarium. You may have seen that the dolphins, as a consequence, the trainer blows a whistle, and then usually the dolphins come and then get the fish or whatever it is that they eat. So usually, again, in animal training, shaping is used with clicker training. Clicker training is a condition reinforcer, which is not different than the word good. So if you pair the word good with the reinforcer, you can just use that. Say good as soon as the behavior occurs. One of the arguments for using the clicker as opposed to using just praise, like just saying good to the animals, is that throughout the day you say good several times and you say different words. So the word good might not always be paired with reinforcement. So it's not going to be very powerful. The sound of the clicker, on the other hand, you're not going to be clicking throughout the day. You're only going to click through during animal training. So the animal is only going to hear that click when you're providing food as the reinforcer. So the click becomes very powerful because it's never associated with anything else. You also have, the term condition reinforcer, again, because it's being paired with a primary reinforcer. So in this case, the clicker becomes a condition reinforcer. Again, like I said, animals in zoos, SeaWorld, and so forth, they're all trained this way. And as I mentioned, the clicker can be used immediately and it's easy. And it also may avoid satiation because you may be able to click and not give food every time that you click. So then the animal is not eating as much as if you're just giving food for every behavior. There's a video here that I'm going to post so you can watch the video of a woman doing some training the horse, or I think the horse had already learned some of these behaviors, so she's just reinstating some of those behaviors using clicker training, so you can have a general idea how this is done. As you're watching the video, try to figure out what the reinforcers are. Are they conditioned reinforcers? Are they unconditioned reinforcers? And why are they conditioned or unconditioned reinforcers? And then look at the antecedents, so the instructions that are being given, the behavior that the horse engages in, and the consequences or the reinforcers that are being delivered. And the question is, are there any other stimuli that may be influencing the horse's behavior, that might be guiding the horse's behavior? So shaping, as I mentioned, is not only used with animals, is very commonly used in teaching skills to children and adults. As I mentioned, it is part of natural language development, so therefore is very effective when you're trying to teach language to individuals that don't have it or have difficulty learning. For example, you can start with the G sound, then good and good, and then good, goodbye, goodbye, and so forth. So those sounds can be slowly shaped, reinforced, and then their approximations can be reinforced and then shaped into the whole word. Um, like I said, it works with the appearance of new forms of behavior. Again, the child must at least be able to make the first step. So you need to have a starting behavior to be able to shape it. I already talked about shaping problem behavior, right? So you can think about tantrums, like parents yelling at you. I don't know if you had parents that would nag you or yell at you. You may have shaped that behavior, right? So your parents like, hey, you need to make your room. And you're like, okay, I'll make my room. The next day, your parents say, you need to make your room. And you don't. You put their behavior under extinction. Then what they're going to do? They're going to be nagging you. They're going to scream at you. And then you make the room after they scream at you. So you went from the starting behavior, which was just telling you to do it. You didn't reinforce that. You waited until they escalated. Then you reinforce escalating. Then the next time they're going to escalate, you're not going to reinforce it. Then they're going to, scream at you even more, or they're going to, I don't know what they're going to do, but then they're going to do something even more extreme. And then you're like, okay, I'll clean my room now. So you slowly shape them into being worse and worse with you. Um, Same with showing off, right? Some people may talk about their stuff to get attention, like, oh, look how cool I am. And that might not work. People are like, oh, let's put that behavior under extinction. But then the person exaggerates a little more, and then some people react to it. So then the person gets worse and worse and starts showing off more and more. So it might be that, if your parents are yelling at you, well, maybe it's your fault. If you have friends that are show offs, well, maybe that behavior got shaped too. Um, Dogs begging for food, same thing. The dog sits there for a second, you give him a treat, and then he walks away. But then you're like, oh, I don't want to give treats anymore. So the dog sits there, and then you wait, and then the dog starts, crying, and then you feel bad, and then you give the dog a treat. Well, now you just shaped the behavior of crying and begging from the dog. Maybe was just sitting or just around you on the table, and now you gave him food, and now you waited, and now he cried, and you gave him food, and then you decide to not give food again when he cries, and then he barks, and then you give food when he barks. So now all of a sudden you have this really um, not very polite dog that you wonder why he's not polite. Well, I know why, because you shaped that behavior. Same with self-injury or any other problem behaviors with individuals with disabilities. A lot of those behaviors can get shaped. Individual doesn't have a way to communicate, engages in some problem behavior, people attend to it, then people decide, oh, I'm not going to attend to it anymore, and then the person engages in something more severe, and then the nurses and individuals around have to attend to it. So now you went from something that wasn't too severe to something that was really severe, and that behavior got shaped by the environment, right? People arguing, same thing, right? Start with a little argument, and then people just escalate, and then they reinforce the escalation. So shaping again is a natural phenomenon. Um, Behaviors get developed through this process of differential reinforcement, and we can then um, learn what we know about how the world shapes our behavior, and then repackage it and then use it to teach a variety of skills to individuals. We can teach, word, talking, feeding, as I mentioned. Um, I can teach your dog to pee outside that way, right? I mean, when you have a little puppy, you might take the puppy outside. I don't know, every 20 minutes to pee, and then you reinforce peeing, and then now they have to hold for longer and longer and longer. So you're kind of shaping the behavior. So a lot of different behaviors can be taught using shaping. So what you need to understand is when shaping is used, the differential reinforcement, so reinforcement and extinction, the fact that we can use both unconditioned and conditioned reinforcers, and then shaping is usually used when modeling instructions and prompting cannot be used. So think about different examples of shaping. Read all the examples that are provided in the book. Some of the examples that I mentioned are actually taken from the book, but there's some more details in there. And there'll be some examples on the exam for you to describe in terms of what's the initial behavior, starting behavior, what are the approximations, what's the target behavior. so forth. Okay, so I'll be posting some of the links. I hope this is as close as to a regular lecture as possible. Um, and yeah, I'll see you guys next class. So I'll be posting the video for chaining pretty soon. And then after that, you have your schedule exam. Take a look at your syllabus. I'll be sending announcements to remind you all. Okay, adios.